Welcome to Mom Boss Central. I'm your host, Alexia Hoffman. This podcast is where entrepreneurial moms like you and me come together for real and raw conversations filled with practical tips, genuine stories, and a whole lot of girl power. But it's not just about listening, it's about building a community. If you haven't already, make sure to join at mombosscentral.com. So whether you're sipping on a cup of coffee, pouring yourself a glass of wine, or tuning in on the go, get ready to join the conversation and become part of our supportive Mom Boss Central community. Michelle, welcome. I am here with Michelle, the early development expert. Will you introduce yourself to our listeners, please?
Yeah, I'd love to. Thank you. I'm Michelle Mintz, the early development expert from my very unique company that's called Baby Blooming Moments. My background is a speech and language therapist for over 30 years. So I really focus on communication and how we learn about how communication changes from when they're infants and newborns to babies to toddlers, and how we need to respond best to them.
Yes, I need this conversation today. As you know, I have the 3 babies, and my twins are 17 months. They're at that health developmental age of communication is, starting to increase, but not quite there. So, tell me a little bit more about how you got into your business and what that looked like with your family system.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's funny, I'm just going to remark on, you said their communication is just starting, but it's kind of having difficulty. When we think of communication, we think about talking, but communication is not just talking, and in fact so much of it is nonverbal. And so that's where my passion came to start my company. So I found that as I was doing my speech therapy, I didn't have a waiting room, and so I'd work out of my home office. And so everybody that brought the child, the parent or the mom or the nanny, they sat in the room with me because there was no other place to sit. And
Yeah.
so I was constantly educating them and training them on what I was doing and why. And so then they were able to follow through when they left. And we just saw the progress like so much faster. And so I said, these strategies are for everybody that have children birth to 5. It's not just children who are delayed. Everybody really needs to know how to proactively engage and enrich these critically birth to 5 years. And so my passion just became really wanting to, it sounds funny, but like having the world be educated about how important these years are and how critical it is to know how to engage with them in the best ways. And so that's where my passion to kind of just spread the word all over the place.
When have you decided to work with kids? Do you have kids? And if so, how old were they when you kind of got into your life work?
Sure. Yeah. So I do have a kid. I don't know that I call him a kid. He's 24, just turned 24. So I have to start calling him a man, which is really hard to do. But I took speech therapy, and I went to Santa Barbara. So I took some classes, and I also actually work with seniors. So my specialty is birth to 5 and then 70 and above. That's kind of what I say. And so those are just the really, all years are critical, but I found that working with the children, they just sponge it up, and you just see how effective it is so very quickly. And it's very motivating. It's very rewarding for me to have a mother in my room start crying because they haven't ever heard their child say more, the word more or the word mama before. And
Mm,
a lot of times it happens with me for the first time. And it's just so beautiful that,
yeah.
of course, I just want to keep doing more.
How long have you been doing this line of work, and how did that line up with raising your son as well?
Yeah. So I have been a speech and language therapist for nearly 30 years. So I say I've been in the baby blooming moments was born 4 years ago, but I really say I've been doing this for 30 years. And it definitely related actually when my son was like, was almost 2 or about 17, 18, probably, where was he? Almost 2. He wasn't talking very much. And so I brought him to another speech therapist because, of course, I was like, what's going on? What's going on? And then he just exploded with words and it was fine. But um, watching how the strategy is sort of implementing practice what you preach, if you will, and then being
Mhm.
able to see how it helped my son bloom, being able to recognize what his facial expressions and body language was telling me, even though
Mhm.
maybe his words might be telling me something else. And so, really getting in tune with what your child is really communicating, not just verbally when we say communication, right? So, even your little 2-month old that's right there is communicating all the time, just
Yeah.
not in words, you know?
Yeah. Definitely. So, what is something that you would tell moms with young babies that aren't verbally communicating to look for, or how can we better be in tune to the communication of our not yet verbal babies?
Yeah. So, one of the most important strategies that I like to teach is you really want to be face to face with your babies or toddlers as much as you can. So, even like in the position that you're in right now, which nobody can see, I know, but you're holding your baby the way that we normally hold a baby in our arms. And if you look at her, you've got right now a great face to face eye contact opportunity to look at her and smile and get her to smile back. And so my takeoff on this is face to face. When you're
Mhm.
so if you're talking to your child and not watching them, you can't really see how they're responding to know how to respond next
I
with them.
see.
You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So there's 2 pieces is that you wanna make sure that your verbal or not and nonverbal communication to your baby is what you wanna be, communicating. Because so
Mm.
if you're really mad because, the toilet just broke and, whatever, and there's like a million things going wrong, and then you go to feed your baby in your arms like you're holding her, and you're kind of like ticked off at what's happened, and you bring that energy and that facial expression and body language while you're feeding her and giving that lane, that is what she's going to pick up, and so
Yeah.
she's going to see that on your face. So you need to be aware of what it is you're communicating to them, as well as, very important, you need to watch them to
Yeah.
see what they're really wanting to communicate. So face to face.
Yeah, I think that is so huge that you spoke about like our body language because I know with my twins, with my husband and I, there would be certain days and we'd get home and for whatever reason we're frustrated and they could sense that, like how they responded, you could tell was just different. It wasn't their normal behavior.
Mm,
And we talk about it like we didn't say anything different. It wasn't even,
right.
like the
Yeah.
words were the same, but
Right.
they did pick up on our tone of
Yes.
voice, our body language. So that is
Yeah.
so interesting. With babies that are pre-verbal, so old enough to want to start speaking, but having a hard time finding words. What
Maybe like
advice?
your twins.
Yes, exactly like my
Okay, because
twins.
like I'm thinking about that age that you're talking about, and it's about where your twins are. That
It
17, you're
is.
you're right there. So yeah, what's your
Yeah.
question?
Yeah, so they have, a few words. I mean, they have a handful of words.
Yeah,
However, there still is a lot of the grunting and the fussing and the groaning. So, how can I help them communicate with me, or how can I be receptive to the communication that they are able to give?
yeah. Very good, very good. So whatever words they have, we really want to highly encourage them to use those words that they have. So if they
Mhm.
have the word more, which is a very
Mhm.
common, word that we like to use because they want more of everything. So teaching them
Yes.
the word more is a
Yeah.
really good way to a good start. So if you know that they can say more and they grunt at you because they want more bananas and they point and they grunt, and
Mhm.
you know they can say more, you know, if you give them more without them saying it, then they're really learning, I really don't have to use my words. So I highly encourage when they, oh, you want more? Jojo says more. Jojo
Yeah.
says more banana, and you make it really fun. And so you get that more out of them, and then you can give it to them because then you're rewarding. I let you said more. Oh, you said the word. Here's your banana.
Okay.
So
Okay.
that's for the words that they have. When
Yeah.
they don't have the words and they're pointing and grunting, what the most important thing that you want to do is you want to really interpret and say what they would if they could. So if they're pointing because they want or they're pointing because they see the airplane in the sky, and they're like,
Yeah.
and they're telling what you want to do is label that immediately. Airplane. Oh, you see the airplane in the sky. So
Okay.
you're labeling items, objects, because at this point, what we want to do is increase their verbal vocabulary.
Mhm.
They need more words to be able
Yeah.
to express, and the words that we need to give them are really nouns. So they're names of the objects, of the things that they want. Familiar items.
Yeah.
Their brush, their toothbrush, the bowl, the fork, not a fork probably, the spoon
My kids
maybe.
love forks. Yeah.
um, so that's my other thing is that so you want to be face to face, and then you want to label.
Yeah.
Okay, so when you're pushing that stroller along and you see the dog across the street and want to point the dog out and you go, "Oh, look at the dog." You have no idea if your child is looking at the dog or not. You're behind them in the stroller. Are they
Yeah.
engaged with you with that
Yeah.
joint attention, or are they like looking around like, "Hey, where's the dog?" Oh, and they look at the flower and they go, "I guess that's a dog," you know?
Yeah.
So you
Yeah.
need to stop that stroller, get into the front, bend down to their level, get face to face, point to the dog, and tell them dog, and look at them and dog. You see the dog, and that is how you are going to increase their verbal communication.
It's really good because, yeah, I do think there's a lot of times we just assume they're looking in that direction, and the words don't necessarily line up. I know our dogs, they say, and we say dog, but for some reason they tie dog to. So I don't know if it's because of cow or what, but yeah, that's something that we think
Yeah,
is so funny.
my speech therapy mind is going, and I'm like, what is that? Okay, so here's the other thing, though. Okay, on that note, is that you need to continue calling it a dog.
They do.
Don't call it a cuckoo.
Yeah,
Is what they
definitely.
do. Okay, yeah, no, that sounds funny, but some people, when the child calls their bottle a baba,
Oh,
then the parent says to them, "Do you want your baba?" Okay, so it's very,
yeah.
very common, and then that child is not ever gonna hear the proper word of bottle, and,
Mm,
eventually, yes, they're gonna know it. It's not like they're gonna grow
yeah.
up saying baba for the rest of their life,
Yeah.
but so on that note, don't you think it's really cute, and that's where I was like, "Oh, okay," because then you like and if you want to, because eventually he'll call it they'll call it a dog. Are they boys or girls?
Girls. All
Girls.
3
Oh, you
girls.
got 3 girls in the house. Wow, your husband is up for some strong estrogen going on.
We don't talk about the high school years in our house. We just avoid
Gosh.
that
No, no, no.
conversation.
Okay. But you know what is so important is that what you are doing now in these 5 years, 90% of brain development happens in the first 5 years. And then
Wow.
it doesn't.
Yeah.
So what you have now from birth to 5 is going to make the biggest difference on how they will be then in high school
Mhm.
and who they will become. And like we
Wow.
know that as parents, we're like, yeah, we're raising kids. Of course, like we're responsible for it, and they're gonna become because of us. But like people need to take that in more seriously
Yeah.
about during these critical years.
Yeah.
And I can't really get started on screens because that's a whole nother issue and a whole
Mm.
nother topic. But the screens are interfering with verbal language communication, face to face, eye contact, and
Yeah.
appropriate social communication.
Wow.
So That's my little high horse on that.
Yeah, well, I mean, I know we can't dive fully into it, but let's talk about what your take is on that and what can parents do to fight the culture that we're
Yep.
in that does
Yep.
promote so much screens. And
Yep.
obviously, in an ideal world, right, if we could say no to all screens, that would be great. But for
Right.
working moms, that doesn't always feel doable. So what is maybe a healthy balance, or what do you
Sure.
feel
That's a
is
really
acceptable?
very good, very, very good way to say it, a healthy balance. Because yes, ideally I'd say don't give them, that screen and you need to give them a toy, but that's not always possible now. What we still want to do, even though you're going to give the screens, is we still want to be aware of how much time you're giving the screens and
Mm-hmm.
and maybe when. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So we want to limit the time. Okay. So maybe not, hey, it's just easier to give this to you now. Like, okay, I'm going to give it to you when I'm trying to make dinner because
Yeah.
that is the time I really need you away from the stove. It's dangerous. I can't have you
Yeah.
pulling on me, things like that. I need to make a super important phone call or do a podcast.
Yeah.
And I can't have you doing that maybe for 20 minutes, half an hour. This is going to be your screen time because I am just strapped. I have nothing else to do.
Yeah.
That's your screen time for the day. And so therefore I need to try and make every other time of your day no screen time. And it's not just screen time for the kids, it's screen time for the adults, which is another issue in itself
Uh,
of
yeah.
what that message is sending to our children. Again, it's a whole other podcast, really, really, really. But in a nutshell, if you are scrolling through your phone while your child is sitting there playing or trying to show you toys or trying to engage with you, and you continue to scroll, that is that is such a poor message for your child is being dismissed and ignored. I'll just put it out there. And do
Yeah.
you really need to look at that Instagram post right now? Or is your child who's wanting to engage or not wanting to engage, but you need to be engaging,
Yeah.
you know? So curb your screen time and their screen time and find that healthy balance. I like that word
Yeah,
too.
definitely. Do you have anything to say regarding what they're watching? I know I've
Yeah, I
heard.
do, and how they're watching actually, because that came up too. So screens aren't that horrible if, believe it or not, if you are engaged with them. Okay.
Okay.
So if you are watching something and it's whether on your tablet or on your TV or where that is or on your phone, but you're watching it with them and you pause and you go, oh, there's the dog. Uh-oh, look at what happened. What happened over here? Oh, it's all dirty. And you engage with them. Oh,
Hmm.
I see the bubbles going up, 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 up. If you interact with them,
Yeah.
then screens can be okay.
Okay.
But, not ideal, but they can be better, a
Yeah.
better use for them. So how you engage and not just give it to them.
Hmm.
My really big high horse that's really so hard for me. And I know in this new generation, you called it culture, like it is what you're kind of growing up and seeing.
Hmm.
But mealtime at restaurants, when each child has their own tablet and each
Yeah.
parent is on their own phone, and that is how their mealtime is spent, my heart is literally breaking for that
Yeah.
entire family.
Mhm.
So mealtime is such a time for connection
Yeah.
that there should be like nobody should have their phones,
Mhm.
at mealtime. And so how you engage with them
Mhm.
and when you give them that phone or tablet or screen
Yeah.
makes a big difference. And
Okay.
don't use it as the babysitter. Don't use it as the easy option out. Oh, they're crying. Let me give them the tablet.
Mhm.
That is not going through. Why are they crying? What are their emotions? And they have to get through and know there's going to be how to get on the other side and not have these screens. So you asked about what they're watching. I grew up in a Sesame Street generation. I don't even know if you
Mhm.
all know what Sesame Street is. Do you?
Yes, we do.
Okay. Um, and I believe it's still on somewhere. I had a mom tell me the other day that they do have their kid watch it, and I couldn't
Yeah.
believe it because nobody does. So,
Yeah.
what you are having them watch, if they are going to be when they are on their screens, is critically important. If you're going to let
Mhm.
them do it, or when you let them do it, then we need to have something educational, something functional. I'm going to put out there, things like, I'm going to probably get killed, but things like SpongeBob, like, there is no value to that at all to me. Okay. And bless you, baby, bless you.
It's active
So
today.
picking things, everybody's, on Miss Rachel, picking, don't just put Paw Patrol on. If you pick episodes of Paw Patrol that are, it sounds so like, like teaching a lesson, or like,
Mm,
that I want there's something good in what they're watching,
yeah.
and how they're watching, and when they're watching.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's something that I have been very fortunate because we have childcare during the week. We have my husband and I both run businesses where we have a lot of flexibility. So we have really tried to implement that and make it a priority. At least me personally, I really try hard not to put screens on. My husband, I think it just depends on his mood more so. But from
Yeah.
a space of no shame or no guilt for what our moms have done or had to do to get
Right.
to where they needed to be. What's
Right.
something they could do if their kids are used to screens, but they'd like to start restricting or limiting them, after hearing this conversation?
Right. Well, one of the things I like to suggest is finding different places to go for experiences and language. And I'm not talking experience like, okay, go take them to Disneyland. I'm talking about, did you ever think about even going to a pet store as just an experience to look around? You get to touch all the toys, look at the textures, look at the smells, this is for dogs, this is for cats,
Yeah.
look at the fish, look at the reptiles, look at the snakes, talk about the birds. I mean,
Yeah, I
I've done
love that.
sessions. I've done, sessions in there. That is great. So you don't have
Mm-hmm.
to give them a screen. Let's go somewhere like really unique and different,
Yeah,
Like,
that's a
I
great
love the
idea.
parks, and I love libraries, and I love like typical places that take children in your music classes and your rock climbing, or, whatever you're doing like that. I love that. But another place that's fabulous to go with toddlers, your age right now,
Uh-huh.
your girls, um, take them when you don't have to go grocery shopping, but you
Uh-huh.
take them to the grocery store, and you put them in the cart, and you go through the fruit and vegetable section.
Okay.
Luckily, we are allowed to touch fruits and vegetables and put them back. Okay. Right. Because we're allowed to
Yeah.
touch them, and like, oh, we don't like them. Okay. So talk about the colors, the textures. Okay. Watermelon, look how big it is. And the cantaloupe kind of is rough. Kiwi, that has that soft on it. Oh, it's green. Can you find, bring color cards and go, okay, can you find something red? And then they point to the red peppers, and you scoot over to the red peppers, and you go, oh, look it's a pepper. And you hold it by your mouth and talk about pepper. And you get a
Okay.
whole lot of language and a whole lot of
Yeah.
fun
That's
and
such a great
different.
idea. Yeah.
So that's what I would suggest when, if your child's having a tantrum and you're like, I don't know where to go and what to do anymore, and I don't have anybody to go with. Sometimes moms feel very isolated, or they feel like, I don't really want to talk with anybody else. I guess I'm talking personally about myself too, when I went back 23, 24 years ago.
Mhm.
But I can't stay home all day. It's a very, very long day with a baby,
Yeah. Yeah.
a very long day. And how do I fill my time? And you know what? I read this somewhere, and it was so great, is that um, if if there's a Costco, or like a big, she went to Costco because they gave away food. So
Yeah.
she was able to eat and didn't
Yeah.
have to like really be cooking. She was able to walk around. If she wanted to talk to people, she could. If she
Yeah.
wanted to just roll around. So I thought that was an interesting place, especially because of the food that you can
Yeah.
get there, And so you're like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, I can't cook anything, and I can't eat anything, go stroll in Costco. And,
Yeah.
I thought that was great. So thinking outside the box, and trying to, get other ideas instead of just going to that screen. And like I said, if people are feeling alone and lonely, but they're not maybe a person that could socialize as well or wants to be in like mom groups and doesn't know how to do it, but needs to get out of the house and do things. These are
Yeah.
a couple of ideas and places, again, CVS and Target and Walgreens, all those places.
Yeah.
Just not for buying anything.
Mhm.
And if you go with a toddler, you go with them telling them, we are not going in to buy. We are going to look and we are not buying. And then
Yeah.
you stick to that. You
Yeah.
have to stick to that.
That'll be the hard part for me, I think.
Okay,
Costco is expensive.
you gotta mean what you say.
Yeah.
If you're
Yeah,
saying you're going
definitely.
in and we are not buying anything and they have a tantrum and you leave the store and do not buy something for them, you
Yeah.
have to mean what you say and follow through. Yeah.
Yeah, I think, just on that note, what made me I thought of something, when I was at Costco, and there was a family there, and they had, it was mom and dad and 2 kids. And the kids were, I would say, older, and they were probably, like, 6 and 8 or
Hmm.
old enough to communicate verbally. And
Yes.
the son was throwing a tantrum. It was something about the fact that he wanted the cookies, and the mom said, like, you didn't speak to me kindly, so now you can't have it, or putting them back. And this child was screaming. I mean, like,
Mm-hmm.
you thought he got stuck in the
Yeah.
chopper at Costco.
Hmm.
And so everyone's staring, and, it's like I had so much compassion for that mom. Like,
Yeah.
nothing in I was like, good for her. Like, that's
Yes.
amazing that she is like sticking to it. Everyone's looking at her,
Yeah.
like that had to be so stressful, but she stuck
Yes.
to it. She put the cookies back. She walked away. I mean, I think all of that, I think that the dad was like standing there and make sure he was okay. But, and I just think someone listening might struggle with that. Like, oh, I don't want my kids to throw a
Yep.
tantrum in public, or my
It's
kids,
very
I don't want them to
embarrassing,
make
of course.
noise. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I just want to say, if you're that mom and you hold firm on your boundaries, I think that's so inspiring to other moms that are there.
Yes.
And truth be told, if you're at Costco, 90% of the people there, I think, have had kids, right? Most Costco members are there because they've had kids.
Right.
So, and I mean, anywhere that you are, I think if you need that reminder of like, it's okay to hold firm on that boundary and to let your kids throw a tantrum. Like,
Uh-huh.
you are inspiring other moms. It's okay.
Right.
Nobody, I don't think anybody is like, oh, wow, anything negative, because we've all been there. And
Right.
I think, if anything, people want to have compassion and figure out how to support you in that moment, but
Right.
nobody really knows what to do. So I just think that's
Right.
important to acknowledge, because
No, I thought that was great. That's really, really great. And if you do see that mom and nobody knows what to do, it's okay to get eye contact with that mom and or give her a thumbs up or, let
yeah,
her know that you are supporting and
yeah,
you know how hard it is. And the other thing I wanted to say that I think is really good with that story is that dad didn't give the cookies then.
yeah,
Because
yeah,
if
that's
he was
huge.
embarrassed about the tantrum and just said, let's just give him the cookies,
And
that
then,
would have been, and that is a common, very, very common, parents not being on the same page. And he's going to, let's just give him the cookies because I don't want to do this. And this is, and then you're in a
yeah,
thing with your husband
yeah,
in Costco, don't give him the cookies. We're giving him the cookie. And
yeah.
so I'm really happy that that dad was also supporting the mom
Isn't
and not giving the cookie. I just had to say that piece.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think that is huge, because in that, yeah, could have been a whole
Yeah.
different outcome. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
someone else would have been yelling at that point. It's just,
Yeah.
I just
Yeah.
because, so, with your business, I do want to dive into that a bit, of just how you transitioned from being a speech language pathologist to going off and starting your own company, and what that was like after being, in your career for such a long time.
Yeah, well, it felt pretty natural because everything that I'm doing,
So tell me a little bit about what it was like to transition from being in your career to becoming an entrepreneur and starting your own venture.
So it actually was pretty easy transition because what I'm doing with my speech therapy is really the same strategies is what it is that I teach the parents that I work with. And I coach in person and virtually, so I'm able to
Mm,
reach people. And what's really unique about what I do and what I found is that it's in the moment. So
mm,
I'm giving you information right there. I mean, I would with your baby, like I would say,
Yeah.
turn her around and, open your eyes and and put the toy next to your eyes. And so it's right in the moment there that I'm giving
Yeah.
those cues. And it's very, very different than, you might read books or articles or watch webinars or, things like that to learn how to be a better parent or what can I do. And then you try and remember what you read at the moment that you
Yeah.
need it. And it's like, so when
Yeah.
I'm there, so the transition was just natural. Like, I just want to share with everybody, this importance. And it's challenging to market. I will tell you that. It's very challenging to get out there because it's a really unique program.
Mhm.
So nobody's really looking for me because it's not speech therapy. This is for healthy, typically developing children where parents learn just how, while you're already diapering and while you're bathing, while you're strolling, I gave you,
Yeah.
while you're strolling, while you're doing your natural activities in your day, you just implement my simple strategies and it just makes such a difference in how you respond to your child and your child responds back. So that's the
Yeah.
really great thing about my program is that it's in the moment at the time
Yeah.
you need it.
Yeah, that is so great. So how has that, I mean, prior to starting your company, did you have consistent income? Was it like paycheck where you could rely on, or was it already, you know what I mean? When did it already feel like you were pursuing
Right.
entrepreneurship with the inconsistency that comes?
Right. Well, that is tough. And I, as a speech therapist, I specialize working. I work with children and their families, birth to 5, and I
Mhm.
also work with seniors, 70 and above, and I help
Yeah.
them with their after they've had strokes or Parkinson's, and help them with their speech and swallowing. I also worked for 10 years at a preschool that's affiliated with the hospital here. And that was pretty consistent. And each child had a mental health diagnosis already
Mm.
at 2, 3, and 4 years old.
Oh my
And so I did a lot
goodness.
of behavior there. So, and I do home health. So I've had consistent jobs with consistent income, but mostly, I work for the state also. So I help children, birth to 3 who get funded by the state to get therapy. So I've really
Yeah.
relied on, I'm an independent contractor. So I kind of have income
So you
that
already had
comes and
that.
goes. And yeah, I've
Yeah.
already kind of had that, but I can't say that it's not been challenging.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's why, I'm trying to reach lots of people and let them know.
Definitely. So what advice do you have for someone who is been in an independent contractor role, and wanting to pursue entrepreneurship? You know, what advice do you have from what you experienced that someone could apply to make that transition a little bit smoother or easier?
I would say that you should find somebody who's done it and see if you can talk to them. And
Yeah.
it was actually very overwhelming when I started it. It was April of 2020, so right when COVID happened is
Yeah.
when baby blooming moment. So again, I've been doing this for 30 years, but
Yeah.
putting together an actual company with a website, with an Instagram, with a real business was 4 years
Yeah.
ago. And I had to learn how to make a website, how to make an Instagram, handle thing, because I never had one of those before. I needed to learn how to put things on Google. And there was so much stuff that I actually, I'll be honest, I got a lot of anxiety because there was so much stuff to learn and do as my own person. And I still do. I'm still my
Yeah.
own person. I do my own social media. I do all the business part. I do all the emails. I make all the appointments. I do, I'm it. And
Yeah.
it's challenging. So if you can find somebody else who's been through it, who might be able to help navigate and not make the mistakes and errors that they already did and save you some time, that would be my biggest thing, is see if you can find somebody to kind of mentor you through, because it's very, very overwhelming. It's still overwhelming.
Yeah,
I'm
definitely.
I'm still sometimes ready to throw in the towel because it's very, very challenging. But it's so important, and it's so of what I have is so valuable. It's so effective. Studies are showing, 90% of brain development happens. And studies are showing that babies that were born during the COVID lockdown are actually behind on their developmental social skills. because they were isolated during that time and they weren't able to get out. And so there's a big epidemic of a post-pandemic syndrome, I call it, for children like 8 and under. And so they really need to be able to bridge the gap and fix this. And so it's just not gonna, kids are getting kicked out of preschool because behaviors are so out of control. So on the other hand, we've got, what I have, my other little branch is called Parenting 911. So you go to babybloomingmoments.com or Parenting 911 is a lot of those behaviors that are being seen and nobody really knows what to do about them. And Baby Blooming Moments is if you don't really have those behaviors and you want to engage and enrich. I kind of have both things going because the world needs both right now. Yes, you think so too. I know.
She's all about it. Well, Michelle, thank you so much for sharing everything. I feel like I have so many things that I learned and can apply. And I would also love for our listeners to get plugged in with you. So where can they find you? And I know you've spoken about what you offer, but is that one-on-one coaching or, what services are you providing?
Yeah. So it can be one-on-one coaching. It can be group coaching. If anybody wants me to do any presentations or workshops for like mommy groups, or they say, their preschool would like me to come talk to them, I'm all about getting this information out to everybody. So you can find me at Baby Blooming. You can email me, Michelle at Baby Blooming. If you want to do the old-fashioned phone call, which is really great because then we get more personalized. I want to mention that I give free 30-minute consultations. So there's really no reason not to contact me because if you have a baby, there's some question that you have in development and you can talk to me for 30 minutes for free. So definitely take advantage of that. I am on all the social media, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok. They're all at Baby Blooming Moments. And I actually have a podcast of my own that I do with my sister and somebody else. It's called This, That, Let's Chat. So you can check us out on that. And what did I miss? Facebook. I'm on LinkedIn, Michelle Mintz. I'm on all that stuff.
We'll link it all in the show notes so people can connect with you.
And let me mention one more thing. It's really important for children. I don't know if your kids are using pacifiers, but it's very important to help them wean off of a pacifier early to help avoid speech and language difficulties. So I actually have a book that I wrote that's called All Done Binky. And so it's about weaning off of a pacifier, and you can start reading it at about 6 or 7 months old. Really bright, beautiful pictures, simple words, and it's available on Amazon.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Michelle. So happy to have you as part of the Mom Boss Central community. And thank you for doing such important work with our little ones and helping parents along the journey as well.
Thank you. I'm so happy to share my information.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of Mom Boss Central. I hope you found inspiration, encouragement, and maybe even a few new strategies to rock your mom boss journey. Remember, you're not alone. We're all in this together. And don't forget to share the love with your fellow mom bosses. Make sure to join the community at mombosscentral.com. It's completely free and a space to connect with like-minded women. All you have to do is sign up and start connecting. Until next time, keep pursuing your passions and living authentically. We're so happy to have you as part of the Mom Boss Central community.